Okay, if you've programmed in any other language, you're familiar with the concept of arrays, which is a grouped set of elements. In this video, we're going to talk about lists and tuples. Python's a little bit more flexible than other programming language, and so you can actually mix data types in individual lists. So you can basically think of a list in Python as an ordered group of elements or an array, and you define the list with square brackets with the list items being separated by commas. So let's go ahead and create one. I'm going to create a list of strings. I'm going to call it student list, and so we use a square bracket, and then we'll put our individual elements. So I'm going to make up some names: John, Susan. So these are strings, and so they're in quotes. Emily, and we'll put one more. Robert. So to print the entire list, you just refer to it by its name. And so let's go ahead and execute that. And you can see it just printed out the entire list. Now if we wanted to print individual elements, what you do is you refer to them by the index. So if we want to, and they start at 0, so if we want to print the first element, we put student list 0, and you see you get John. Of course we can change that. Student list 1 would give us Susan, and of course we can use variables to make this more useful. So I could say index is equal to 2, and then student list, let's print that out. Print student list index, and so that should give us Robert, or Emily, sorry. Okay, so we can also print a range. So I could say print student list, and I could print a range 1 to 3. You can see it gives us Susan, Emily. So I could actually create a new array. Let's put female students equals student list 1 to 3, and then we'll say female students. Let's print it out. Print female students 1, and you can see that gives us Emily. Or if we just print out the entire female student list, you can see it took Susan and Emily and put it in there. So that's how you can create a new array out of a subarray, or I shouldn't be using the term array, list. You can also select items starting at one element all the way to the end. So let's say we want to start at Susan and include Emily and Robert. Susan is element 1, so I could say new list is equal to student list 1 colon print new list, and you can see that gives us Susan, Emily, and Robert. And of course I could change that to 2, and now it just gives us Emily and Robert. So that's kind of an interesting feature of Python. But one of the really interesting things about Python, although not necessarily had reason to use it, is mixing data types. So I could say, let's go ahead and erase all this. So let's create a new list. I could say my list is equal to hello. Pick a number 7. Now let's put a float 40.3, and then another string goodbye. And then we could print some of these out. So let's say print my list 1, print my list 3. So you see we get 7 and goodbye. Now let's print some types. So I could say print type mylist 1, print type mylist 2, and then we'll go for the third one. We'll say print type mylist 3, and you can see we got int, float, and string. So these really are the different data types that are available. And working with the individuals, it's the same as before. But now we're going to talk about tuples. A tuple is defined differently, so let me define one, and then we'll say what the difference is. So I'm going to say my tuple, and instead of using square brackets, I'm going to use parentheses. So I'm going to say hello 7, 40.3, and goodbye again. And then we can print this out. Let's put print. Or we can print an individual element. I got a typo there. Okay, so we got hello, 7, 40.3, and goodbye, and 40.3 for my tuple 2. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is a tuple is read-only. So, if I wanted to create something that wouldn't be modified in code, you'd want to use a tuple. So my list can be changed. So I could say, let's print my list again. And then I'm going to say my list 0 equals, let's put George, and then print my list again. Okay, so you see right here, it's hello, 40.7, 40.3, goodbye, and then down here, change the first element to George. So a list, the elements can be changed, edited, whatever. But a tuple, they can't. So let's say my tuple 0 equals George, and then print my tuple. So it gave us an error. Down here it says object does not support item assignment. So tuples, you can't change the assignments. Lists, you can change the assignments. So you might want to use tuple for some constants, for example, that you use in your program. So let's just say my math constants would be equal to, could put the number e, pi, let's make something up, 1.72. So that might be used for a tuple. Whereas a list, that's something dynamic in your programs. So that's a little introduction to lists and tuples, and we're going to talk about dictionaries in the next video.